Somebody looked at a private jet, a penthouse apartment, and a six-axle truck, and asked, what if those three things had a child? What you are looking at right now is the result of that question. And before we get into it, this is a fully AI-generated concept design. No factory, no production line. Nobody is building this. It is pure imagination. And that is exactly why it is worth breaking down in detail. Because when you remove real-world constraints, you get to see what design is actually capable of becoming. This concept is a double-decker luxury motorhome finished in black obsidian and brushed titanium. It has more glass than most apartments I have seen. It sits on 6 wheels. And there is one detail at the rear of this vehicle, a structural decision that I genuinely have not seen on any other motorhome concept. And I am saving that for when we get there. Here is the plan. We walk the exterior first, then we go inside floor by floor, then we talk about what would actually power something like this. And then I give you my honest verdict. Let's go. The front face. The first thing you notice is the face. And the face of this concept does not say motorhome. It says something else entirely. That front fascia is almost entirely glass, a full-height panoramic windshield that wraps across the entire upper deck, bookended by razor-sharp LED daytime running lights that cut horizontally across the lower bumper. The DRL signature is interesting because it is not trying to look aggressive. It is calm, precise, confident. That is a very specific emotional register, and it is one most motorhome designers miss completely. Dead center in the lower grille is a winged emblem. Symmetrical, minimal, backlit. This is a brand mark that was designed to be photographed. Right now, in 2026, every high-end EV concept is doing this. That illuminated logo is almost a signature of the era, and this concept commits to it fully. What does that front face communicate before the vehicle even moves? It says, the person inside this is not camping. They are residing. The side profile. Look at the proportions from the side and you immediately understand the design logic. The upper deck is almost entirely glass. I mean genuinely, the glass-to-body ratio here is unlike anything in production today. That upper glass runs the full length of the vehicle, interrupted only by thin structural mullions that almost disappear at this distance. The lower body is brushed titanium paneling, horizontal, flat, with those thin amber LED strips that run the full length just below the upper deck transition. That amber strip is doing important work. It visually separates the two levels, creates the illusion of the glass deck floating above the chassis, and at night, it is going to make this thing look like a vessel crossing water. The roofline itself is flat and wide. No dramatic taper toward the rear. This designer made a deliberate decision to keep the silhouette rectangular and imposing, and I think that is correct. You want mass at this size. You want presence. A tapered roof on something this large reads as indecisive. The side also reveals the entry stairs, a multi-step integrated staircase, flush to the body when retracted. That is a detail that matters for daily living. Every morning you are stepping up into something that feels deliberate. Somebody looked at a private jet, a penthouse apartment, and a six-axle truck, and asked, what if those three things had a child? What you are looking at right now is the result of that question. And before we get into it, this is a fully AI-generated concept design. No factory, no production line. Nobody is building this. It is pure imagination. And that is exactly why it is worth breaking down in detail. Because when you remove real-world constraints, you get to see what design is actually capable of becoming. This concept is a double-decker luxury motorhome finished in black obsidian and brushed titanium. It has more glass than most apartments I have seen. It sits on 6 wheels. And there is one detail at the rear of this vehicle, a structural decision that I genuinely have not seen on any other motorhome concept. And I am saving that for when we get there. Here is the plan. We walk the exterior first, then we go inside floor by floor, then we talk about what would actually power something like this. And then I give you my honest verdict. Let's go. Reading the interior from the outside. I want to do something slightly different here. Since this is a concept, no factory floor, no brochure photos. What I am going to do is use the exterior as a set of design clues and work out what is almost certainly happening inside. Think of it as detective work. And honestly, this approach produces more interesting analysis than just reading a spec sheet. Ceiling height and upper deck logic. The upper deck glass spans the full height of what appears to be approximately 1.4 to 1.6 meters of interior clearance. That is based on estimating wheel diameter as a scale reference. That is enough for full standing height with significant headroom. You are not ducking anywhere up there. More importantly, the upper deck in a double-decker layout has one enormous advantage that single-level motorhomes cannot replicate: the view. You are elevated. You are looking out from a full-glass surround. Whether you are parked beside a lake, or rolling through a mountain pass, or crossing a desert, the experience of that upper level is fundamentally different to anything a ground-level motorhome offers. That is not a small thing. That is the entire value proposition of this design. Zone layout. Based on the proportions, I would divide this interior into roughly 5 zones across 2 floors. Lower level, cockpit, functional kitchen and dining area, wet bathroom, utility storage. This is the working level. The parts of living that require infrastructure, water, drainage, cooking, charging. Upper level, lounge, sleeping quarters, and what appears to be an observation area at the front behind that panoramic windshield. This is the experiential level. The parts of living that are about feeling, not function. That separation is intelligent. In most motorhomes, the tension between living space and functional space is never resolved. You eat in your bedroom. Your kitchen is next to your bed. This double-decker layout solves that problem structurally, and that is genuinely sophisticated thinking. The upper lounge. Behind that upper glass is what I believe is the primary living area. Based on the width of the vehicle, which appears to be at or near the maximum legal road width, you are looking at a usable interior width of somewhere around 2.2 to 2.4 meters. At that width, with the standing height we established, the upper lounge is a real room. Imagine what that space would actually feel like. You are sitting in a chair surrounded by glass on 3 sides. The outside world is not a small window you are peering through. It is the entire visual field. At night, with amber ambient lighting running along the floor perimeter and the exterior LED strips reflecting softly off the panel work, that space would feel more like a private club room than a vehicle interior. Kitchen architecture. The lower-level kitchen, based on the visible staircase width and side panel proportions, would sit somewhere mid-vehicle on the lower deck. In 2026, the direction in high-end motorhome kitchens is full induction, not gas, not combined, fully induction, with flush panel refrigeration and solid surface countertops that read as continuous, not assembled. The driver behind this shift is actually quite practical. Induction generates no combustion gases, which matters in an enclosed living space. And in an electrically powered vehicle, induction integrates with the battery management system far more cleanly than a gas line running through the chassis. Sleeping quarters. The sleeping zone almost certainly sits in the rear upper section, positioned above the rear axle cluster. That positioning is counterintuitive until you understand the logic. The rear of the vehicle, in a triple axle configuration, is the most mechanically stable point. Less road vibration, less sway. And in the upper deck, you have maximum separation from the operational level, which means genuine acoustic privacy. The bed orientation would logically be transverse, running widthwise rather than lengthwise. which at 2.2 plus meters of interior width gives you a bed that is wider than a king-size mattress. That is not a compromise. That is better than most hotel rooms. Bathroom. On the lower level, the wet bathroom is where the engineering constraints become real. Water management on a vehicle this size requires gray water tanks, black water management, and a pump system. And in a concept this sophisticated, you would expect heated tile floors, a walk-in shower with frameless glass, and touchless fixture control. The interesting innovation in 2026 luxury motorhome bathrooms is water recycling, gray water filtration systems that recycle shower water for toilet flushing. At full off-grid capacity, that system extends your freshwater range by up to 30%. That is not a luxury feature. That is an engineering necessity for extended travel. Cockpit. That upper windshield sweep tells us a great deal about the cockpit vision. The driver sits behind what appears to be a full-width panoramic glass, which means forward visibility at a seated position is dramatically wider than any conventional motorhome. By 2026, Level 3 autonomous highway capability is becoming standard across European coach design. In a concept like this, which is clearly imagining a near-future operating environment, the cockpit would almost certainly be designed to transition between active driving and passive supervision. That means the driver's seat likely swivels. The instrument cluster is probably a horizontal screen array rather than a conventional dashboard, and the steering column probably retracts when autonomous mode is engaged. That cockpit, when you are parked, becomes part of the living space. The front of the vehicle opens up. The boundary between driving and living dissolves. Why full electric is the only logical choice here. A concept at this positioning level in 2026 cannot be diesel. Not because diesel is incapable, it is entirely capable, but because the statement this design is making is incompatible with a diesel powertrain. The design language is quiet, precise, controlled. A rumbling diesel is the wrong answer to a question this concept is asking. Full electric, dual motor, one per primary axle, is what this concept requires. The leading reference point for powertrain sizing would be something like the Nikola Tre or the Freightliner eCascadia, heavy platform electric drivetrains producing in the range of 500 to 750 kilowatts combined. That is adequate torque for a vehicle in this weight class on any gradient you are realistically going to encounter. Battery. Battery capacity for something this heavy and this loaded with electrical systems, climate, lighting, smart systems, cooking, would need to sit somewhere between 300 and 400 kilowatt hours to deliver meaningful range. The real-world range target for a vehicle like this, in a production scenario, would be 350 to 450 kilometers per charge. That is not impressive by passenger car standards. But by heavy platform standards, that covers a full day of travel between overnight stops with a single charge. Solar roof. The glass surface area across that upper deck represents a substantial opportunity for integrated photovoltaic panels, flush-mounted, invisible from ground level. This is not a primary power source. What solar does in a concept like this is extend off-grid interior systems operation, climate, lighting, device charging, by 4 to 6 hours per day in optimal conditions. That is the difference between 1 night off-grid and 3 nights off-grid without needing to find a charging point. Smart systems. The AI hub managing this vehicle, in a real engineering scenario, would learn occupancy patterns, precondition the interior before arrival, manage regenerative braking to optimize range on known routes, and integrate with Starlink V3 for full broadband connectivity anywhere on Earth. The vehicle essentially becomes a node on your personal network. It is always on, always conditioned, always connected. What this concept gets genuinely right The double-decker layout with that glass-to-body ratio is the single most resolved decision in this design. It solves the fundamental tension in motorhome living, the conflict between functional space and experiential space, better than anything I have seen in this category. The upper glass deck is not an aesthetic choice. It is a living philosophy made physical. What seems impractical? Let me be direct about something. That glass surface area on the upper deck is visually extraordinary. But thermal management of a predominantly glass upper level in a warm climate is a serious engineering challenge. Glass transmits solar heat. An upper deck that is beautiful in Norway in September is potentially a greenhouse in Arizona in July. A production version of this would require electrochromic glass, auto-tinting panels that respond to solar load. And that technology exists, but it would add significant cost and system complexity. This is not a deal breaker, but it is the design's most vulnerable point, and nobody should pretend otherwise. Most impressive detail. The winged emblems centered in those black alloy wheel caps. It is a small thing, but it signals that whoever designed this concept thought about how this vehicle looks when it is stopped, when someone is walking past it in a car park, when it is sitting at a charge point, when it is parked by a lake. Most motorhome design stops at the profile sketch. This one went all the way down to the hubcap. That level of detail is what separates concept work that is genuinely resolved from concept work that is just impressive from far away. One thing I would change. The amber LED strip running the length of the lower body is doing good work. But I would run a second, cooler strip, white or ice blue, along the upper deck perimeter. Right now, there is a monochromatic quality to the exterior lighting that feels like a missed opportunity. Two-temperature lighting, warm amber at the base, cool white at the top, would create a visual separation that makes the upper deck look like it is floating even more than it already does. That is a relatively minor change with a significant visual return. What this signals about luxury mobility. Here is what this concept is really telling us. The people who are dreaming about this kind of travel in 2026 are not dreaming about camping. They are dreaming about untethering from a fixed address, from a commute, from the idea that home is a place on a map rather than a thing you carry with you. The motorhome has become, in the imagination of the next generation of luxury travelers, what the private jet was to the last one. A statement of complete personal freedom. It is a concept. It is fictional. It is AI-generated. And it is one of the most resolved double-decker motorhome concepts I have put in front of this camera. So here is my question for you, and I want a real answer in the comments. Upper deck full glass for the views, or solid insulated roof for year-round thermal comfort? Because you genuinely cannot have both at full optimization. Pick your side. And if this is the kind of analysis you come to YouTube for, the honest breakdown, not the hype, subscribing is honestly the most efficient way to not miss the next one. We do this every day.